En el centro de la pampa vive un pimiento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento.
Hello, I'm Patrick Barnard. Welcome to the 92nd edition of the Pimento Report. I'm here in the 185 hectares of western Pierrefonds that the Green Coalition and other environmentalists on the island of Montreal think must be saved.
The landscape you see now consists of 185 hectares of land of unique environmental value in the Sauvons corridor of the borough of Pierrefonds-Roxboro in the western part of Montreal Island. The nonpartisan Green Coalition of Montreal and the Sierra Club of Quebec, along with other environmentalists, are leading a campaign to save these 185 hectares because promoters are planning to cover this land with 5,000 to 6,000 housing units. A citizens group, Sauvons, is informing residents right now of the immense importance of this ecosystem, especially since the City of Montreal has increased its own target of protected natural spaces from 6% to 10% of the city's territory. That means an addition of 2,000 to 2,500 hectares of natural space. The 185 hectares in Pierrefonds-Roxboro is the largest portion of contiguous connected space of its kind on Montreal Island. So it is essential to Montreal meeting its own natural spaces target. The Pimento Report visited this area on Friday, June 5, 2015, in the company of three Montreal environmentalists, Alison Hackney, Charlie McLeod of the Green Coalition, and David Fletcher, Vice President of the Green Coalition. Let's take a field trip through the 185 hectares with these three people right now.
David Fletcher, are we in the heart of the 185 now?
Yes, I think you could say we're almost at the geographic center of the area in question. Maybe not quite, a little bit to the south still, but what you can see behind me will all be developed, over the next number of years, over the next decade. What we're looking at now won't be here.
If this is not preserved?
If it's not preserved.
And that's why it has to be preserved?
It's why it has to be preserved, and it's why people like myself and the other people out here in the West Island and people from downtown and people from around the region recognize that this is a place that needs to be saved, and they're going to bat for it. And I think, this becomes a model for what happens everywhere in the region. If we can save this and we can get our politicians to treat this in a serious way, then it will act as a template for what happens off island in the North Shore and in the South Shore. When we look at it, because word will pass around about what a wonderful place this is, it places a high value on people's properties and makes their resale values higher and so on. That's the way we can measure some of the value of this, that people are attracted to it, people want it. They not only want it, they need it.
You know this area well, this ecosystem. Why is this valuable for preservation?
There are over 150 bird species here, several of them of vulnerable or threatened status, such as American kestrels. It is a more or less a wetland, and it is of great ecological value for all kinds of reasons. Very highly productive. This is a nesting area for yellow warblers, swamp sparrows, common yellowthroats, all those insect-eating birds that are an essential part of the fabric of life on the earth.
do the politicians downtown realize the value of this land, its environmental value?
I think they don't take the environmental value at its full worth. They need to perhaps come out and visit and see that it is much more than just a blank space on the map.
Top of the order, this is probably the last field area of this extent anywhere on the island. You know, as far as both the east end of the island and the west end of the island, this used to characterize, this was the major part just 50 years ago of what was on Montreal Island. And it's all being developed. This is the last stand, the last gasp, if you like, for field habitat on Montreal Island. And it's critically important. There's a lot of species that depend on this kind of land for their survival. It's a breadbasket for a whole host of species. This contributes significantly to the mix of spaces that we have on Montreal Island. If we've got simply woodlands and a few wetlands, it really doesn't represent anything that was the natural heritage of Montrealers going back right through history. So I think from a natural heritage and a social heritage standpoint, this is an important piece of land to conserve.
What's your just immediate reaction to these fields?
Well, there's a lot of new growth here that is not necessarily indigenous to the area, and some of it is, but there's a huge amount of potential biodiversity in this place. And I think that needs to be looked at. I think not just the recreational value, but the educational value of this property, the ecological value, the economic ecological value as well should be looked at for protection for future generations. I think there's a huge amount of biodiversity in this place that needs to be protected. This can be a legacy for the area for a long time to come. Should be protected, definitely.
Now I'm going to be trying to find something with this camera. I don't know how successful I'd be, but what would you look for out here today?
Today I'd listen for birds. Because there's species here that I think need to be looked at, possibly species at risk. Amphibians is another aspect of things. If those streams are in proper condition, there could be some potential for that as well.
Allison, you're up to your shins anyway.
I sure am.
This is real wetland.
It is indeed.
Do you want to come towards me and show the people? Wow. And wetland is valuable.
Semi-aquatic plant.
Oh yeah.
Wetland is the most productive and valuable type of habitat there is. And 90% of wetlands in Canada have been destroyed, unfortunately.
So this is really important then?
It is important.
Yeah.
It is important.
The ecotourism business in Montreal is estimated to be $2.5 billion to $3 billion a year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, Tom Mulcair, when we first met with him back around 2003, understand the pitch that we made exactly on that point. That these lands and the Los Alarm corridor and the other parts of the west end of the island here could be sort of a key, a jewel in the crown, if you like, extending all around the Lac des Deux Montagnes. And this would have had a tremendous touristic potential. It would have been a real draw for people wanting to watch birds. We've got an exceptional variety of bird life here, a lot of which nests on the ground, exactly in these fields. They need these fields for their survival and for their reproduction.
So I'd like to ask the three of you, Charlie, David, and Allison, what's your thoughts today? Charlie?
Well, my thought for the day is just, wow, something here, everything here needs to be protected. This is just a gem of a place, and it would be a crime to see it go to waste for a development such as this.
I just think that the people of Montreal, when they get to understand, which they don't right now, are going to be extremely disappointed, but more than that, they're going to be extremely angry. There's an opportunity here that our politicians could take downtown at Montreal City Hall and in Pierrefonds Borough Hall, that's going to be lost forever, and their name's going to be plastered on this tragedy.
If it happens.
If it happens. And Green Coalition is going to be there to make sure that history is recounted again and again and again. These politicians don't want to leave that legacy behind them.
Alison, what's your thoughts for the day?
Preserve this space. It provides oxygen. It is an îlot de fraîcheur.
Thank you.
En el centro de la pampa vive un pimiento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento.